right, Cristina, we're going to dive right in. I'm very excited to have you on Feminine as Fuck Now. And for anyone that hasn't listened to my episode on your show, we will link that down below. Let's start with the first question that I am dying to ask you. And I've been so curious of this from following you for a while and just like the content that you put out between the cultural differences of Mongolva, where you're from, and then Canada, the US. So let's start with there. What have you noticed have been the biggest cultural differences when it comes to men dating masculine and feminine energy that you think women would be really interested to know about?
Well, I think one of the main differences is really back where I come from. It's still very much traditional family values. Like people kind of default to very traditional way of, I don't want to say even necessarily living, but just relationships, like masculine and feminine. There's not really confusion about what is the masculine, what is the feminine, as much as there is in many ways here. Yeah. And that then leads to, you know, like no one ever has questions about who pays the bill on the first date, who picks up the luggage if it's heavy, you know, those kinds of things. They just by default are something that, like those things, something that a man does and certain things a woman does. Whereas I find in North America, like I'm based in Canada, but it's very similar in US. Not everywhere in US. I feel like the South very much still has.
Oh no, the South. Yeah, I always say to people, like, if you want to meet a good man, just like come to the South.
Go to the South. Yeah, that's what I was like.
I'm running an event here in November, and like I've literally said in like emails, like you may leave with a husband because the men here are just a different breed. It's fabulous.
Yeah, I've said before that that's like the last standing hope for the Western civilization is the US.
Truly, it's true.
I mean, yeah, because it's still very much like traditional and stuff like that. So, but you know, in Canada and in many Western countries, really, there's a lot of confusion around that, and I think in many ways men are even afraid to step in or step up and do those things, and in a way they feel like they are going to be, you know, restricting the woman in some way if they just pick up the luggage. Like, I'll give you an example that I feel like you'll really like. Maybe I've given it to you when you were on my podcast months ago, but when I land in Moldova, and it's like that in all of former USSR countries, Eastern European countries, like even if you go to the Balkans, when I land in Moldova and I'm waiting for my luggage in the luggage lane, the second I eye it, like the second I see my luggage and I look at it, some guy's going to run up and say, "Is this your luggage?" And I'll go, "Yep." And they'll pick it up for me. They're not even going to ask. They're just going to be like, "Don't worry about it. I got it." There's no romantic connotation to it. They're not trying to hit on me. I'm wearing my wedding ring. It's just like, "Oh, there's a woman. This is her luggage. It looks heavy. I need to help her because that's what I'm supposed to do," kind of thing. Yeah, whereas here I usually have to ask for help.
Oh, yeah.
And people help, like men help, but it's just not.
But they
like,
also get like taken aback sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you've had that experience. I had an experience when I was pregnant. And like when I was pregnant, I wasn't even just like getting help. I was still lifting the suitcases myself off the like baggage carousel, which is just unacceptable in my mind. Anyway, and I don't know whether I told you this on your podcast. That might not have happened yet. I was really pregnant, traveling. I don't know where I was traveling to. And I was by myself. Hal wasn't with me. And I was trying, you know, when your suitcase has gone through security and it's like harder to get off than put on. Well, or like not even harder to get off, but you kind of need your belly. You don't realize until you can't use your belly that you kind of use your belly to like slide the thing off. And I couldn't lift the suitcase off the baggage carousel. And I asked this guy and he was so taken aback. And it was actually like, I kind of felt bad for him because he completely fucked it up. Like he was so flustered. He picked my suitcase up and instead of putting it down on the wheels, he put it down flat as though I was opening the suitcase like on the ground. Like just he was clearly like so flustered by it. And he was young. He was probably like early 20s. And I just thought I could have been probably the first woman that's actually ever asked him for help, where he then like was so taken aback and doesn't even know what to do, especially because the younger generation of men these days are dating the women that are like, I pay for half. I don't need a man in my life. Like I'm an independent woman, blah, blah, blah. And so then here's this pregnant woman that has to ask for help. There was probably a mix, because I can kind of tell, of I've never been asked this before, but also, especially because I was in the Atlanta airport, so like the South, but also shame of, oh my God, this really pregnant woman, like, why did I not see that she needed help, you know? So it is like those stories, I'm like, they are not few and far between. So my question then is, go for it. Yep.
No, I was just going to say what you said there, I would say is the main difference is the attitude. In many ways, or on many occasions, I've heard this attitude of like, we don't need no man. Back home, I'm sure there are women who feel that way maybe, but overall, that's not at all the vibe. Like, it's very much like, no, we need men. And men are very much like, yeah, we need women. Like, we need to appreciate each other's roles and we need to appreciate what we can bring together. So that attitude doesn't really exist back home.
Okay, interesting.
And it's not even my home anymore. Like, I feel like I always say back home, I haven't lived there in so long, right? But like, yeah.
Well, like, you know, from part of your home, right? It's kind of like Australia is technically my home, but I haven't lived there in so long. Okay, so then following up with that, do you have any friends back home that you're still in touch with?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, beautiful. So what would you say, if any, is there any differences between the relationship struggles, let's just say, from your friends back home compared to your friends in North America? Like, are your friends back home, quote unquote, happier in their relationships? Or like, what juice could you tell us there?
Not necessarily. I would say it's pretty even in the sense of happiness and satisfaction and success of relationships. So yeah, I wouldn't say happiness is necessarily the metric.
Okay.
There that I would say, but overall, I think when relationships are formed is where you see it the most. Yes. So I would say all of my friends that I have here, pretty much, they found the one, so to speak, right? Like they love each other, they have beautiful relationships, and it's the same back where I come from as well. So
have you noticed differences in like what they struggle with in relationships? Or, I mean, it also can just be the people that you're surrounding yourself with, right? So like, I'm not digging for an answer necessarily. I was just curious.
Yeah, I think it's part of that is who you surround yourself with. And then maybe the fact that just my friends found people with whom they are aligned with on many levels. And not all of my friends are very traditional. Like I know people here who, like I know women here who are very much like, almost like trying to be half and half, you know? Right. And then they struggle a little bit with their husbands because they're like, well, but like, you know, I want to step up and step in. So then we have these conversations. It's very interesting. Yeah. But I think I would say on average, women here that I know, they default to the 50-50 mentality. And then where I come from, women don't default to... It's not that they don't default to 50-50 mentality, but it's a different mindset. It's still very much like, no, the man has to step up, the man has to step in. Even if all of them work like here and where I come from, they run businesses, women that is, right? Run businesses, they work, they do stuff, but
just the dynamics are very different. So how did the dynamics start between you and your husband, and have they changed over time as the two of you have grown? Yeah,
certainly. So I met my husband when I was very young. I was 19 years old when I met him. And he is 8 years older than I am. We met at a music festival. And we, you know, fell in love right away. I would say in my early 20s, I was very much in my masculine most of the time without even knowing it. Not maybe even necessarily with him as much, but I would just default to that because I got a very serious corporate career in my early 20s. I was hustling, and I very much still believed those, you know, core beliefs that I've had that like, well, the man is still the provider, the man needs to strive to have goals, to have all these things. But I myself was, without even knowing it, very, very masculine, and I was competing with him, unfortunately. Like, I'm embarrassed to say this, but I do have this. Not that I'm embarrassed to say this, but like,
hey,
you know,
this used to be me.
It was part of the journey.
I was the queen of emasculation, so like, no shame here with that.
Yeah, so we've had definitely many instances where we were rebalancing and I guess, you know, we had some friction, let's just put it that way, when it came to, you know, for example, we did a really big move just a few years ago, and during that move, I started to build my social media business. I started to pivot my career. I quit my corporate job, and it was difficult to pivot those things, more so for me than it was for him. Yeah, of course, he also had to kind of like pick up certain things that maybe he wasn't aware of before. We were never, it's not that we were never 50-50, but we always supported each other whenever we needed it the most, but it wasn't really like the 50-50 in the, the terms that you would call today.
Yeah.
So I started off in very much like, hey, I'm going to climb the corporate ladder, be like a baddie in the corporate world. And then when I realized that maybe that's not necessarily the path that I want to take and I want to do something on my own, we definitely had to rebalance and restructure, but he supported me through it all. It was kind of like a situation where I realized that as long as both of you are willing to do the work and as long as both of you are listening to each other and you're supporting each other, you can change the dynamic in relationship. It's not easy, but it's doable.
Yes. But the key thing, right, is because here's the thing. Some people, they outgrow each other in relationships, right? Which I'm sure you agree with, because one person wants to grow or one person's growing in a certain way and the other person doesn't value that. Like the values become misaligned, right? From where they were when you started off. But what you said is really key in that you both wanted to grow. It sounds like your values have maybe evolved, but they've evolved and stayed in alignment with each other. And so you've been able to grow together versus outgrow the relationship. Okay, so as you then moved from, being really in your hypermasculine and disconnected from your feminine to then being more in your feminine and, obviously, like you said, you still were making sure like your now husband, he was like doing the man things, quote unquote. What were some key things for you, maybe realizations, lessons, things you had to learn, or just like things that you started putting into your day that supported your body getting out of the your nervous system gets so used to being in that masculine place that it can be really hard to then make your feminine your default and your baseline. So what were some starting things for you that helped you to start to shift that internally?
Oh, that's such a good question. I would say it was definitely not a straight line and still isn't, because I still sometimes default to, like, for example, if I'm like trying to rest, I'll have a moment of like, why am I resting? I should be doing something, And then my husband would be like, if you're resting, like if you want to take a nap, just take the nap. Like, just relax and enjoy it.
We'll get to this, but just like men are so simple like that. Like, you can just take the nap. And we're like, no, but.
Yeah, for sure. So I still have moments like that. And you're right, it is very difficult, especially when you've been conditioned that the only way is just to continuously be in the state of like, oh my God, I need to get things done. But I would say first, I was on birth control in my early 20s. So quitting birth control, I felt like a completely different person after I quit birth control. Actually, I think that was like the catalyst and the starter of all the changes that I was experiencing, and even not finding the corporate career as appealing as I used to when I was on birth control. And
do you think
by the way,
you could start to feel like the changes in your cycle, like as you went through then each different phase, so you couldn't like keep up with your ovulation self in your luteal phase, for example?
Yeah, 100%. I could feel certain changes. I could feel that I was a little bit more analytical during my luteal phase, and in my ovulatory phase, I was like a tiger. I was like ready to. Every meeting I would walk into, I'd be like, "Hello, I'm here," And then, in my luteal phase or like in my menstrual phase, I would be second guessing myself a lot. So I started noticing those changes that weren't really there before. When I was on birth control. So I think that was, and again, like there's nothing wrong with corporate careers. I know wonderful women who still, they're killing it there. It's just I started to notice these changes and I was like, wait a minute, something is happening here. So it was a long journey of changing to the point of like changing my workout routine, because I was working, 5 times a week. I was waking up at 4:30 in the morning, going to the gym before work. And I thought that was like super healthy. Yeah. So the first thing that I changed was being like, hold on a minute. I don't know if this is necessarily good for me. So I need to change my workout routine. I'm not supposed to be working out like a man. I'm not supposed to be deadlifting, all throughout my cycle. Like something is not right there. I feel more stressed, and working out is supposed to make you feel less stressed. So changing my workout routine, really, and I know this is going to sound so like, what? But like actually trying to relax, like letting go, dropping your shoulders, because I would notice myself in any interaction or conversation that like I would even have with my husband, I would like tense up and try to figure things out and solve stuff. So I had to literally be like consciously, and I still have to do this to date sometimes, right? Be like, hold on, drop your shoulders, relax, you're fine. Let him speak and find the solution, So, and my husband was always in his masculine, let's just put it that way. But I think for me, it was a difference of, hold on, I'm not competing with him. He's my husband, you know, we're trying to have a relationship here. So I need to relax, let him handle it, and take a step back.
Okay, amazing. Love it.
Yeah.
When you were talking, I was trying to write this one down. I don't want to forget this. You are really no bullshit on your Instagram and like cutthroat. And I love that about you. Like zero fluff, you know, if you like, you're often posting reels where it's like, if you want to get flexible, go fucking stretch, you know? And these days, and I know we can totally jam on this for a second, these days, especially in the younger generation, there is, and just even in the world of personal development, there is a lot of overthinking. There is a lot of like, oh, if I want to heal or if I want to change, I need to have this like dark night of the soul that's going to go on for years and years and years. And everything needs to be like so complicated and so hard in order for me to change versus, of course, there is an element of that, like hence I have a job, but there's also the element of if I want to choose to change or if I want to choose to become flexible or if I want to be more in my feminine, let me just fucking start. Like, why do I have to sit here and, you know, be overthinking all the time? And I know you've interviewed some really epic people, but also you've just been on your own journey of, you know, personal growth and development. What have you noticed in the online space, the internet, you know, in all these different mediums? What have you noticed are some of the things that people need some like no bullshit advice on and to stop overthinking when it comes to being the version of themselves they want to be, you know, manifesting their dream life that you talk about, that kind of thing?
Just fucking do it. Like, it's literally that simple. I don't even know. Like, stop thinking. I think people think so much and they're so in their own thoughts, and they overanalyze their own thoughts too. Like, they'll get a thought and they'll be like, wait, why am I thinking this? Or why am I feeling this? Why am I constantly in this space? And just do it. Like, if you want to, you know what you need to do in order to get the body that you need. You know what you need to do in order to achieve the goal. Maybe not every single step, but you at least know a few steps that you need to take right now. Just take those steps. That's all you have to do. Like, it's literally that simple. And people will like make so many excuses. Oh, you know, no, it's not that simple. It is that simple. You just have to do it. What have you done to achieve the goal? You know that if you want a toned body, you need to get up and pick up a weight and do something. Or even without a weight, if you have resistance bands or yoga mat, whatever it is.
Or
you
just
have
get off the couch. Like, that would actually be
get
a
off
good
the
start.
couch. Yeah. Maybe turn your phone off. Because I also think that people, they get inundated with all this information and then they are almost, you know, overstimulated by all the info that they get. When really, if you strip it all down, like if you just distance yourself from all of the advice that, I'm not saying that don't get any advice. Yeah, of course, you need to get some advice out there. But like, isolate yourself for a moment from everything that you've heard and bring it back to like, okay, what is the first step that I need to take? And take that first step. Because once you take one step, it's easy to...
Right, and that also comes back to just trusting yourself and your own discernment. And like, for the most part, when it comes to taking those first steps, whether it's building a business or getting the body that you want or whatever, you fucking know the first step, right? Like, it's absolutely not rocket science. You shouldn't even need to Google it. But I actually do think, from what you said, the inundation of information is causing people to go into decision fatigue. And like, the algorithm's semi-freaky how it all of a sudden knows like what you're going through in your life. Like, as soon as I, you know, gave birth to our son, all of a sudden every reel that I'm getting, I can't even see my own, like the accounts that I follow. Every reel is like about reflux or colic or changing your nappy, or your baby shouldn't be in this position, or, you know, you shouldn't let your baby like, you know, pretend to like stand up while you're holding them because it's bad for fucking hip development and all this shit. And I'm just like, oh, so basically put the baby in a cage and like look at it from afar, because everything that you do apparently is going to hurt the baby. I had to actually take time to fully change my algorithm. I was having to search like, you know, interior design and just like anything that was so different from baby stuff. And every time I now get like some advice that maybe it's helpful to one person, but truly, like, when it comes to anything, I think in life, there's a million different paths that you can take, and no one path is necessarily better than the other. You know, like it's all going to end up leading you to, you know, semi the same outcome. And half this shit online, you don't even know whether it's actually like coming from someone that knows what they're talking about, or whether it's just their personal thing. And then whether it's as a mother or you're trying to be a business owner, it's just a pile of comparisonitis.
Yeah.
And
yeah, for sure.
I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, is that they just end up comparing and they have decision fatigue, and then they don't do anything and they don't trust their own intuition and like their own direction. So Something that you and your husband talk about is like, you know, building your dream lives together and that kind of stuff. What were some of the first steps that you decided to take, or even just some recent steps that that you have taken to get yourself to the next level?
Taking risks is huge. And I admittedly have been historically a very miscalculated risk taker. I'm the one who's like, woo, let's just do it and then we'll figure it all out, you know? And thankfully, my husband balances that out with being a calculated risk taker. Mm-hmm. But you have to take risks. Like, you have to risk things in order to achieve something extraordinary or do something that people don't do. So I would say number one is decide that you want something and take the risk. So my husband and I, we were both working in corporate careers when we were living in Calgary in Alberta. And we both kind of decided, you know what, like if there was a time to try something else and try to build something of our own, this would be it. Okay, so what do we need to do? Well, we'll probably need to sell our house if we want to move and live between, two places, be North America and Mexico. Yep. Okay, let's sell our house, you know? But that was a risk because we had very stable life, very stable income. You know, it was a huge risk that we were going to take. We didn't know where we were going to end up necessarily. Like, we knew we were going to have to build stuff and we were going to be okay. We had careers to fall back on if anything didn't work out, but it was a huge risk to be like, okay, well, we're dropping everything and we're going to completely change our lifestyle. The second most important thing is don't ask for advice from people who aren't living your lifestyle. You may have heard this like on numerous occasions. Every coach, every guru out there says that, but it is so true because even your closest friends, when you share your plans with them, if they can't relate to them, if they have never done it or if they have never connected with the person who has done that, unknowingly, like they don't even realize they're doing it, they're going to question your decision and they're going to doubt it.
Yeah, and then you're going to doubt it.
And then you're going to doubt it, for sure. And then it's going to delay the progress, if not completely derail you from it, right? So be very careful with whom you share your plans. And as a couple, it's especially important because I think you feed off each other so much. So if one of you starts wavering, the other one might get a little, iffy. So my husband and I, we barely ever share any of our plans with anyone, unless it's the people who we know for a fact are going to contribute to our success and help us find ways to do it. It's actually insane how much that's helped us. We don't even really share our plans with our families because our families, God bless them, we love them so much. But like, my mom has never built a business. My mom is a doctor back home. So for her, the idea of like, wait, you're going to quit your very serious career to do
stupid.
What exactly? Like, what do you mean? So I'm like, no, You know what? I'm going to do it. And then I'm going to show you receipts, Mom, show you the results. And then she's, of course, very supportive, right? I'm going to ask my mom for other advice in life, but not necessarily business advice, right? So I would say that's one of the most important things as an individual and as a couple.
Ladies, if you are not already on the Her Year waitlist for 2026, like you just don't want to miss out on this. I feel like Her Year 2025 was truly a teaser. And I say that with like kind of a smirk because this program was better than I even planned for it to be. And everybody in this program, everybody's expectations was just wildly exceeded, including myself. Very proud to say the plan that we have for next year will blow your mind. So now that I know what I'm doing next year for this program in 2026, I'm like, oh, 2025 was like the beginning. It was the teaser. So if you're the kind of woman who's ready to stop talking about her next level and actually fully live it and embody it, Her Year is where that happens. And of course, if you're not sure it's for you, read the website page. A few really key things is it is a 12-month mastermind-like style program where we're really centered around the conversation of what it looks like to fully embody feminine leadership. And it's not just for business owners. It's for women who are leading in any area of life. Maybe you have a career, maybe you don't, but you find that you are leading, whether it's in love, whether it's in the family, whether it's in motherhood, health, your career, and you want to do it in a feminine way. You want to reduce that mental load. You don't want to be burnt out anymore. And you just want to get to the next level of everything in life. And if you look at the 12-month plan, you will see that every month we talk about a different thing and I give you guys a different masterclass. It is an action-based program. If you do not want to take action, if you do not want to be told what to do and then all you have to do is do it, then this is not the program for you. Okay. The waitlist is where you will get early access, you will get bonuses, you'll get first dibs when the doors open. You do not want to not be on this waitlist, especially if you've been feeling the pull. Just trust it. Join her year next year, plan to do it, add yourself to the waitlist, and let's make 2026 the year that you actually become her. I have talked about this before, so I really love what you've just shared, Cristina. I've talked about it in the sense of women will say to me, like, I want to up level in whatever area of my life, or I want to go do this thing, or blah, blah, blah. But when I, share that with somebody, then they'll doubt me, they'll ask questions, and then like, I don't really know what to say. And then I start doubting myself. And really, I think it's also, especially unfortunately with women, is that without knowing sometimes, even, good friends, the jealousy or the fact that you're going out and kind of getting to the next level and living your life, and maybe your friend hasn't given themselves permission to do the same. And so unconsciously, they're trying to kind of pull you down so that they don't feel like they are, not expanding in the way they want to, or they're not then, they don't feel like as much of a quote unquote failure if they're telling themselves that. And so it is really important to just be mindful of who you are sharing your goals with, especially if you feel like you could waver in them. If you need to protect your energy, then you need to protect your energy. And I feel like it can be hard sometimes. So I'm curious your thoughts on this of like, it's not about, it is kind of about, you got to be careful who you trust, but then that also can be really hard because you don't want to feel like you can't trust people. And I know for a lot of women, that is a really big wound that they've had with men, but also other women, and like the sisterhood wound then, and feeling stabbed in the back of like, I can't trust anybody. And we know as women that we are stronger in community. So when it comes to your friends, obviously you're clearly very conscious of who you spend time with. What tips would you have for people in either like choosing your friendships, or like, a lot of people always ask me like, how do I make more aligned friends? But really just in regards to your own journey with like sisterhood wounding, feeling like you can trust other women, and then finding women that are living their best life, so then they want to cheer you on as well.
Yeah. So I've said this on numerous occasions, but some of the most incredible amount of like love that I've received online and in real life has been from women. And some of the most vicious, like just crazy hate that I've gotten has also been from women. So I would say,
can we just pause
for
there?
me,
Like what is with that, Cristina? It truly, even though like I know why it happens, it's like this queen bee syndrome. It just blows my mind. Like when you look at comment threads, like of course there are sometimes like the guys in there that are just like making dickish remarks. Of course. But like there is an astronomical difference of the amount of hate that go from women to women than men to women and men to men. And it's kind of alarming, especially because women then still are like, men are the problem, men are the one ripping women, men are the ones ripping women down, men are the ones that are seeing us as not equal, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, men actually really don't give a fuck what we do. They actually just want to like help us and be there for us and pick up our suitcases. It's women that are ripping other women down. It's women that are making other women feel judged and less than, not men.
Yeah, I would say definitely, some men are in fact misogynistic, and there are men who are just like the ideas that they have. I'm like, wow, really?
No, I'm talking generally speaking when it comes online.
I would say psychological warfare that women put on one another is pretty, like, I've had women like gang up on me in my comment sections. Like there would be threads, and I don't really read that much my comments anymore, but I had women in the past like literally form threads in my comments, group themselves together, and just like spout hate towards me on posts. And I'm like, oh wow, that's a bit like girl power, girls supporting girls or whatever, women supporting women. I was like, this is very interesting. But for me, you have to trust your intuition, because your intuition is always, always, always right. And for those listening, if you're like, well, I'm not sure, sometimes I don't know if it's intuition, your intuition is that first feeling that you get about someone, like when you first meet them. Sometimes you meet someone and you're just like, wow, I feel like my body just like expanded. Like I feel so uplifted after meeting that person. And then other times you'll meet someone who everyone is obsessed with. Everyone's been telling you how great this person is. And you meet them, you shake their hand, and you're like, I feel like something is just not right. Just trust that. I'm not saying you need to be mean to that person. I'm not saying you need to right away be like, you know what? I'm actually like, my body just told me that I shouldn't be talking to you.
You don't need to use that language.
Make note of that, because there's something to it. And, you know, to your point, when you were asking, like, how do you know, how do you pick friends? I believe that you can make friends at any age. I've made so many friends in the last, 4 or 5 years of my life. Any city that we've lived in, it's actually very easy to make friends. But you have to really tune into your intuition. And this is something that I think also we undervalue how good we are at that, and we undervalue just how powerful our intuition is. Because sometimes, you'll share news with a friend of yours, and your friend will seem so happy for you, but you just feel like the words and the expression, the facial expressions don't match what they actually feel. You know that's the
energy's
truth.
A little
you know
bit
what
off,
I mean?
yes.
The energy never ever lies, and I believe in energy so much. There's a reason why, again, sometimes a person will walk into a room and you will feel like the whole room got lit up, and then other times a person will walk into a room, a different person, and you'll feel like it just got dark. You know what I mean?
Or you walk into a room with other people and you're like, who just blew their lid in here? It seems like someone just had a fight, right? Like, that is energy. Energy isn't even something that you believe in. Like, it is a full scientific thing. I'm sure you've heard of the study of, plants being lined up and then different affirmations being said to different plants, and the ones that had the more positive affirmations, and they're all, given the same amount of water, same amount of sunlight, everything else is the same. The only thing that is different is the words being said to the plant. And the plants that have the positive words that have been said to them grow astronomically faster, and the ones that have the negative words that have been said to them die. So energy isn't even, for those listening, energy is not something that you can choose to believe in. Energy is science. It is a fact.
Well, what about your mother? You recently gave birth. I've heard this from so many of my friends who have become mothers. Like, they didn't believe in any of this stuff until they gave birth to their baby. And I've heard them and I'm curious to know, like, what your experience is in this regard. But one of my friends was just sharing that with me. She says, when I'm worried, irritable, or anxious, my baby's crying, my baby's anxious, my baby's just like constantly in like this fuss. But if I'm really calm, if I'm in a really good mood, my baby's a great baby, like, it's a great baby no matter what. But the energy, like, they feed off the mother's energy so much. So my friend was like, now I finally get it. Like, energy is a thing.
So, like, children, right, you got to think about it. Like, when they're born, they're so pure. They haven't been altered, if you will, quote unquote, or just, shaped by conditioning and stuff yet, because they're so little. So you really get to see, like, the amazingness, not that's a word, of the human experience, of a human, and like its capabilities and just like the magic of it, right? What you're talking about is, yes, the baby is feeding off the mother's energy. What really the baby's actually doing is co-regulating and with the mother. And so babies aren't able to regulate their own nervous system, so they have to borrow the mother's nervous system. So when the mother is calm and her nervous system is regulated, the child's nervous system is regulated. When she is not regulated, then the baby's not going to be regulated. But I think the key thing that you've shared is it sounds like for your friend and then other mothers, and obviously I don't know your friend, but this could be it, is that prior to having her child, she wouldn't fully acknowledge or be aware of those more intuitive feelings, right? She couldn't feel them maybe, or she just wasn't aware of them, right? Your intuition becomes so strong when you become a mom. Like, I have always had a really strong intuition, and it was very strong before I fell pregnant. But oh my God, when I fell pregnant, it was like my ego couldn't even try to out-talk an intuitive thought. Whereas prior, I would have to catch my ego for trying to tell me why like an intuitive thought doesn't make sense or is illogical or whatever it is. Same with motherhood. My intuition, like my ego doesn't even try to talk back to my intuition, if that makes sense. And so it sounds like for this mother though, now she's more aware of her body and her sensations, and like birth also does that to you, and just having a child and whatnot. And so that's where then it's like, okay, if she's a little bit anxious, even if it's a really low level of anxiousness, the child is still going to pick up on that, right? But I also completely believe and trust, because babies have not been subject really to like programming yet, that a baby will pick up on somebody's energy. So like if I was, out or something or rather, and like somebody wanted to come say hi to my baby, and my baby just started crying or like turning away from them, like I'm trusting my baby's intuition, because they're not thinking, oh, I have to be polite or like don't be rude. They're not thinking those things, right? They're just completely responding to like what's happening in their body. And so even when we were choosing our nanny, I really listened to that, of what happens when, this potential nanny picks up Trip. How does he respond to the nanny? And so the nanny that we chose, she's like a fucking medicine woman. Like her energy is divine. Anyway, and when she picked Trip up, he was just completely normal in his mannerisms, as though I picked him up, which is crazy, right? Whereas other people might pick him up and he'll be different. And it's not necessarily because the other person is a bad person or whatever. It could just be because the other person doesn't feel confident holding Trip. And so he then feels that. And so then he doesn't feel confident and safe in the arms of that person. But, I mean, to your point, energy is everything. And we could even talk about that, right, in regards to bringing it back to like feminine and masculine. I know that you're all about that, Christina, of like, sometimes there is the underlying energy of resentment or bitterness or controlling or whatnot from a woman. And even though things haven't been said, he can feel that. And we don't give credit to even men being able to pick up on the energy. Their intuition is not as strong as ours. That is full scientific, like that has been scientifically proven, especially compared to mothers, but they still are able to pick up on it to an extent. So I'm curious, are you the breadwinner or is your husband the breadwinner?
I mean, he technically is the breadwinner, but both of us are winning breads. Yes, yes. But
okay.
He's a dominant breadwinner, let's put it that way, at this stage of our relationship. I wanted to make sure
I like worded the question correctly. Okay,
yeah.
So even better. So for the women that are not necessarily the breadwinners, but you're still contributing a lot of money to the household, and in whatever way that looks like, how has that shifted or elevated your dynamic? And like, how have you guys as a couple moved through just the challenges of both making money and you being a powerful woman that says what she wants and that also makes her own money?
So we started off when we first started, dating, when we got together, we were both working. And then about 2 years into our relationship, my husband was like, you know what, like I need to have something a little bit more serious, I guess, going on for my life. And the best path for me to take is to go to law school and become a lawyer. So my husband actually became a lawyer while we were together.
Okay.
So about 2.5 years into our relationship, maybe 3, he went to law school. And at that time, I already had my corporate career going on. So I wasn't going to be like, well, great, you figure it out. Bye, let's reconnect in 3 years. We were very serious. So I was like, of course, I'm working now. So I was the breadwinner for 3 years, basically, while he was in law school.
Okay.
3.5 even, until he actually started, going down the path of work as a lawyer. So that dynamic, I would say, I was very young, and I definitely, right now, I probably would say there's other factors that I would probably look at if I, at this stage of my life, was doing something like that. Where, he's in his late 30s now. So I would be like, oh, you're having a career change now. Well, that's interesting. So I would, there's further questions that I would probably be asking.
Yes.
He was in his 20s then. I was in my early 20s. So it was a different time and a different dynamic. But basically, I picked up somewhere where he needed support in order to level up. Mm-hmm. And then when he finished law school, we were both working. And then, maybe 2 years after that or 3 years after that, we were both like, hey, let's completely change our life. So then he had the means to support me while I was rebuilding something. So we continuously support each other on the journeys of leveling up. So right now we're still in a position where, I've leveled up, so to speak, right, through these years, but he's still supporting me in that leveling up process. Yeah. And we're reaching a level where, we know that, for example, there's going to be a time where I'm going to need maybe a little bit more of his help to continue to level up.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a time where he's going to need a little bit more help of mine to continue. Does that make sense? Like
100%.
It's
give and take. It's
a
relationship.
Exactly. It's a relationship, and it's a partnership where we know in order for us together to continue to go down these levels, because I want to continue. I really love having a business. I really love running a business. In order for me to be able to carry on and continue to do these things, we have to continue to support each other on the level up journey. So it's not a situation where I'm like, well, you figure it out. You're the breadwinner. You're the provider. So I'm not going to do any of that. No, I want a relationship. I want him to achieve his full potential, the fullest potential he could possibly achieve. And he wants the same for me. So, you know, we always talk about this. Like for him, he always says, like, if you were really obsessed with baking bread, for example, and you really wanted to perfect yourself in that area, I would support you in that, you know? So whatever it is, we just continuously lift each other up.
I love it. You guys have such a beautiful example of a healthy relationship through like all the seasons that you've gone through. Have there been any moments though where it has been challenging for you to be the one that is more supporting him, talking financially that is, or any challenges where you've gone from the one being supported financially to then having to support financially? What were those challenges?
Yeah, well, without realizing it, I think I fully turned into like my most masculine self. And so I remember how I said like I was competing a lot.
Yeah.
That wasn't cool. And the challenge of rebalancing that was, I mean, there's been times like this all sounds, you know, rainbows and sunshines. No, not at all. Because like even just a couple of years ago, we had such a hard time in our relationship. We thought we weren't going to make through that tough time because we just weren't hearing each other.
Yeah.
We're really good at communicating, but at that time in particular, like I was trying to communicate that I want to maybe default a little bit more to a traditional setup in the sense of like I wanted maybe him to step up in certain areas, but I didn't know how to communicate that, and he was really confused about it. And I mean, you go through tough times in relationships. That's normal, but of course, that rebalancing, it's not so easy. You have to be really diligent in your communication. You have to be willing to hear the other person and actually make changes. And who wants to change, right? We always want the other person to change. We don't want to change ourselves, right? So I was putting a lot of responsibility on him without even communicating what I needed. Oh my gosh, of course. I'm like, well, you need to do this. He always jokes. He says, yeah, I need to be able to read your mind basically for you, you know, to be happy in some of these moments. So of course it's tough. But again, like you have to go back to the baseline of like, okay, what are we here for? We're here to build a beautiful relationship, to build a beautiful life. Are we heading into the same direction? We are. Okay, great. Then everything else we can figure out. Because if we at the base level are not aligned, then that's a problem. So that's what kind of brought us back together to be like, wait, what are we fighting about? Hold on a second. We have to figure this out because we want the same things. We're heading into the same direction. We're just having a misunderstanding of how to get there right now. So let's sit down. Let's talk about this. Let's commit to each other because we're married. We've committed to each other. Let's sort this out. Yeah.
How did you end up being able to, quote unquote, hear him? Like, and when we're saying hear him, we're not saying through your ears hear him. We mean like hear his intention, what he's trying to communicate. Because as you know, like the way that men and women communicate are so different, right? He's saying one thing, you hear, like he's saying apples, you hear oranges, and then vice versa. So if you remember, how did you end up fully hearing what he was meaning, and how did he end up hearing you, or how did you end up changing your communication so that he could actually hear it?
I had to take my ego and shove it into a very far corner. Yeah, literally, like just flush it down the toilet.
Okay.
And you can never like fully get rid of your ego, right?
No, it's there for a reason.
Yeah, I definitely had to check in with myself and be like, wait, I think I'm just like choosing not to hear what he has to say. And you know, we really want our partner to be perfect and without flaws, right? Like, and I realized that you know, I got mad about something and then I just couldn't let it go. And I was like, okay, well, I'm setting a very unrealistic expectation of perfection. And would you even want a partner that's perfect? Like, that'd be really boring. If you had things to work through, you would have zero issues to resolve together, like that would really not be cool, right? So for me, it was letting go of my ego and realizing that, hey, just like I expect him to know that I'm allowed to make mistakes, and sometimes I will make mistakes and I'll say things that, you know, maybe I didn't think through too much, or I did something without realizing that this isn't necessarily the best approach. I would expect my husband to understand that, hey, that was a mistake. So how come I can't understand that maybe a certain reaction that he had was a mistake? So for me, it was that. For him, I don't know. I feel like I would have to ask him that. I don't know actually what brought him. I think for him, it was the decision that, hey, I want to be with you. That's what matters the most. I want to resolve this issue. It's an issue that we're experiencing. It's not a problem with each other. It's an issue that we've invited into our relationship that we need to solve. Let's solve it. So for him, it was more of like a commitment, like, no. Like, we have to solve this and move on because we're married. And I want to I want to continue to be married to you. Exactly. Yeah.
Guys, this is the last chance for intimacy and Telegram one-on-one support in your relationships with joining Be a Lover, Not a Mother. This is your final chance to get inside of Be a Lover, Not a Mother with access to this Telegram group, and most importantly, to you being able to share a situation that you need support in or something that you always find that you're coming up against. And I will send you a voice note back to give you exact specific guidance on what you are struggling with. And this is what the Telegram group has been used for over the years since I've been doing Be a Lover, Not a Mother since 2020, actually. This program has changed so many relationships. It has literally prevented divorces. It has saved marriages. It has reignited chemistry like no one's business because it teaches you and it helps you to embody the energy of actually being in your feminine. So you are not mothering your man. You are instead being the lover. You are loving your man. Hence, be a lover, not a mother. So if you've been thinking about joining this program, or maybe this is the first time that you're hearing about it, go look at the website page. The link is below in the show notes, and join before the end of the year. The sooner that you join, the more of me that you get, obviously, because time is of the essence. And get in before the end of the year, because next year the program will not have the Telegram support and the one-on-one access to be able to ask me your specific questions. Okay, let's get back into the show. I love it. I love it. Okay. So my last burning question for you, we're kind of circling back to when you were talking about just like women being so vicious in the comment threads and just like spending way too much time talking to people that they don't know about you. You have such a epic gift for like your bluntness and your sarcasm and all of that. And I just have so much respect for you, just the way that you show up online. I have a lot of respect for it. And I would love to know, especially as, you know, cancel culture and just people have just, I don't know, have got way too much time on their hands to be mean online. How have you, and this has probably changed and evolved over time, so you can kind of, if it has, give us a little bit of the journey of how it's changed. How have you protected your energy from cancel culture? Because you have stayed very true to yourself, or at least so it seems. So yeah, how have you protected yourself from cancel culture and protected your energy from it whilst also staying incredibly true to yourself and not just changing how you shop online to get less hate?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's not, especially if you're starting out on the journey of social media, it can be so overwhelming, like some of the stuff that you receive. Number one thing is realizing who is it that's trying to cancel you, or who is it that's spouting hate? Are those people really the people that you would actually realistically listen to in real life?
I would hope not, if you're listening to this podcast.
No, I would hope not, because, you know, I have friends, for example, who are public figures who disagree with me on certain things, but they still respect me, right? I have friends with whom I disagree with, but I still respect them.
And you probably don't feel the need to like blast that as a comment. You can just swipe to the next post. Funny that, right?
So this is something also very, very interesting, is I see so much stuff online that I disagree with, and I don't think I've ever once gone into the comments and written a paragraph about how this person is wrong in this way and that way and in a million other different ways. Because if I see something that I disagree with online, I'm like, oh, okay. that's a different opinion. And then I just carry on with my day because my day is too precious. And I'm already kind of spending a little bit too much time on social media anyways. I've been scrolling
Amen.
for a little too long. So sometimes that's a reminder for me to be like, hey, you know what? I should probably go do something a little bit more productive.
Yep.
Maybe create my own content, you know? And I'm inclined to believe that that is a very mentally healthy approach to this whole thing, you know? So for me, it's always going back to like, okay, who's leaving those comments? Is it worth my care and my energy? And of course, it's sometimes easier said than done, especially, you know, there's times when, and I'm sure, you know, many people have experienced this, but there's times when you say something and then there's such a wave of hate that it feels like the whole world is against you.
Yeah.
The whole world's not against you. There's always people who agree with you. And our mind tends to always focus on the negative.
Right.
You know, there's this blogger from my part of the world. Years ago, he posted a video that is just so brilliant. He said, like, you know, 100 people will give you a compliment, and then one person will say something mean to you, and your brain will focus on the one mean thing as opposed to 100 compliments.
Yep. That I can personally relate to. Like, because our brain is wired to remember the negative as a protective mechanism so that we don't die. We are wired to remember the thing that is a threat to our survival. We're not wired to remember the positive things that are good for us. Like, how that's not protecting us from anything, right? And we're wired for protection, but it also then becomes a mental, like it's a constant mental rehearsal of then having to remember the positive things that people say about you rather than focusing on the negative. And second to what you said, right, it's like the people that have time and that want to spend their time in their day and their energy, you know, behind a computer screen or on a phone, writing mean things or like on Reddit threads or whatever, that is a special breed of person that you probably don't really want in your world, whether it is as a paying client or whether it's someone that's following you or as a friend. And it's also the people that you shouldn't be listening to. Like, if you're listening to this podcast, you shouldn't be listening to negative people or like people, you know, leaving those kind of comments or that kind of content, because it's going to bring down your energy to be, even if you're not the one writing it, if you're reading it. I don't know whether you've ever found that, just like when you get down like a rabbit hole of just reading some of the negative things people say about other people. And I have to catch myself of like, why am I allowing myself to read all of these things? This is so horrible. And like all it is doing is bringing down my vibration as well. And again, people are entitled to their opinions, obviously, but the people that feel the need to rip somebody else down in the process of sharing their personal opinion are not high quality people.
Yeah, that's what it boils down to, right? Like, everyone's entitled to their opinion. I believe everyone, you know, you should be able to express your opinion. But at the end of the day, you know, I mean, it's scary, right? You go online and you're like, hey, well, if I'm putting myself out there and I could be ripped apart for this. Yeah. But I always also go back to, like, if you're not sure of something, don't say it. Like, work your way into your truth. And once something is the truth for you and you're strong in your conviction, then share it. Because then it doesn't matter who attacks you and who hates on you, because you're strong in your truth. And you can change your mind, by the way. It's also, you know, what I found is, in order to succeed in the online world, or in order to be able to feel at peace and at ease as much as you can, you have to let people misinterpret you and misunderstand you, because it's going to happen. You know, you'll say one thing and then people will immediately be like, okay, well, if this is what she thinks, then that means that this is the other box that I'm going to fit her in, and this box and this box and this box. Okay, that's it. I formed my opinion of her. And it's like, wait a minute, like, we're complex creatures. Yeah. If I think this, it doesn't necessarily mean that I think that, you know, like, if I believe in traditional family values in my household, it doesn't mean that, I don't know, I'm against.
Well, you're also right. You're not saying women shouldn't vote. You're saying
exactly, yeah. or you know, or like, in order, if you believe that, you know, if you yourself try to be feminine, then that means that you believe that all women should just be, in the kitchen all day and not be able to work. Like, hell to the no.
So this happened a lot when, like, my book came out, for example. I could tell in comments when people hadn't actually read even the first page of the book, because they would say, like, there was this one comment, of course, right? Like, you remember them, right? As you said. And it was like, don't read this book. She's just telling people to be a trad wife, right? And which is so hypocritical given that she runs her own business. And I'm like, you literally, the first sentence says, like, I am a feminist. I am the breadwinner. I can say no when I want to. Like, if you actually read the book, I'm not saying that at all, right? But of course, these people aren't even reading the book. But you have to remind yourself of that, of people just making these assumptions. You say, I like oranges. They're like, oh my God, you hate apples.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
Okay. Are there any last bits of wisdom that you feel called to share with the audience that's on your heart?
I would emphasize the intuition aspect again and again, because, like I said, I think we undervalue and underestimate just how powerful it is. And if you reflect back on some situations that didn't work out the way you hoped, I guarantee you in 99% of those cases, you felt what the outcome would be, or you felt something about it that you would have known, but you were like, like your ego kicked in, your reasoning mind, right? Your reasoning mind kicked in, and you were like, no, maybe it's just me being paranoid, or me being this, or me being that. And the other thing with that, because I know people have so many questions with that, is a lot of the things that your intuition will tell you will actually make no sense. So you have to train yourself to be comfortable with that. Exactly. Yeah.
And that kind of goes back into, like, the risk taking, right? Of, like, follow your intuition, even if it makes no sense, because if you want, like, an illogical life and you want to manifest illogical things, then you need to make illogical decisions.
Yeah. And the other piece of wisdom is, it's not my quote, I saw it online, but I can't stop saying it to people. Action precedes confidence, not the other way around. You have to take action.
Action precedes confidence, not the other way around. I love that. I love that. Well, Cristina, thank you so much for being here and giving us your wisdom and your insights and just inspiring the audience. Where can everybody find you, and also share your own podcast that they can listen to as well?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I enjoyed being on your podcast. Anywhere you can find me, Cristina Cataman. I'm mainly on Instagram. That's my main platform. And my name is spelled without an H, so it's Cristina, and then Cataman is spelled just like you hear it, cat-a-man. And
that's kind of fitting, actually, for what you do. Like, it's almost like Catch a Man. The way
Catch a Man. Wow.
Like, the way that you actually just spelt it out, like cat a man. I'm like, wait, that just clicked. Of, like, it actually is, like, really fitting with what you do and, like, the wisdom that you share.
I think it's very fitting with what you do. Well, that's why you heard it.
Well, that's
this is
true.
The first time I've heard people rep.
Oh,
people
really?
Usually say, like, how come there's an A? It should be Catman, like Batman, but Catman.
Oh.
Or sometimes people would say, like, sometimes people are like, oh, how come it's not dog a woman, but it's cat a man? You know, like, it always refers back to the cat. Yeah.
Well, my name actually Monica means to advise and counsel. So, like, my name is very fitting for what I do. And that's why I feel like I sometimes I like to know the meaning behind people's names. Not that the meaning behind Cataman is Catch a Man. But anyway, we're going to leave it there. Thank you guys all for listening, and we'll see you next week on the podcast.